The economy has changed a lot since then in terms of reducing tariffs and encouraging investment and becoming involved on a multilateral basis in world trade organizations and economic governance organizations, in modernizing and internationalizing all these systems which are now in place. My name is Jocelyn Chey. I also have a Chinese name, Mei Zhuolin. I'm basically a retired diplomat, but I've also spent a lot of time in universities. I've worked in Hong Kong and Beijing and Canberra and Sydney. I've been involved with the development of relations between Australia and China since the Australian government established diplomatic relations, which is in December 1972, and that's quite a long time ago now, and I'm still very much involved. But I think I will never forget my experiences during the Tangshan earthquake. At that time, I was actually not in Beijing. I and my family were enjoying a summer holiday at Beidahe, which is even closer to Tangshan than Beijing. So we were woken in the night by the earthquake. I think it happened about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had never been in an earthquake before, so to begin with I didn't know what this was, except that the whole house that we were staying in was shaking, and we spent the rest of the night outside, not in the house. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because this was a holiday place which was run by them for the embassy staff, they sent a military plane to Tihuangda, and all of those people who had been on holiday in Beidahe were driven to the military airport at Tihuangda and flown back to Beijing. When we got back to our embassy, all of the staff were sleeping in tents outside, and we were there for several weeks. But what impressed me most, I think, was that the local staff of the embassy, the drivers, the cooks, the interpreters, they all had families. They were all worried about what had happened to their families. Some of them even had relatives in Tianjin or in Tangshan, but they still came to work and did what they could to help us on a day-to-day basis. I think their dedication and their attitude towards service and to helping others was very admirable. When I first went to China was Cultural Revolution period, and basically nobody was leaving. So China was very much a closed society, very little contact with the outside world. The big change came in the 1980s when the doors were opened much more widely, when it was possible for tourists to go to China, when Chinese people were allowed to listen to foreign broadcasts. So on my second posting in China in the 1980s, I and my husband had a lot of friends, particularly amongst the artists and writers, and we really enjoyed our life there much more than we had done on our first time there. China is no longer closed to the outside world, and I think one of the big changes that's happened to the Chinese economy is China joining the World Trade Organization, which was one of the issues that I and our then ambassador Ross Garner were involved in discussing with our counterparts in the Chinese government when we were there in the 1980s. That's a very significant anniversary to look back to also. The economy has changed a lot since then in terms of reducing tariffs and encouraging investment, both outward investment and inward investment, and becoming involved on a multilateral basis in world trade organizations and economic governance organizations, in modernizing and internationalizing all these systems which are now in place. Looking to the future, I think that both Australia and China can benefit a lot from cultural exchanges, from trade and investment, and from working together to solve the big problems that face humanity in the future. 我希望中国跟澳大利亚可以找一些项目可以合作。我最关心是气候变化。我想如果两个国家可以共同商量，可以共同合作，不断是为了澳大利亚，不断是为了中国，也为全球的人口会带来一些好处。